As the competition went on, several other contestants were knocked out. I was wondering when my name would be drawn, but it was down to the last two who had not participated yet. So I knew my number had finally arrived. And as we only have two contestants who have not yet participated, I don't think drawing from the hat will be necessary, the man announced. If the contestants would step forward, please. I left my place in line, moving towards the table, taking my seat. My opponent, Fetch Wilson, from a rich coal mining family, meaning of course that they owned coal mines and not that they minded themselves. He took his seat across the table from me. I sat there waiting for the announcer to begin rifling through the hat. As far as my opponent's scholastic ability, I didn't really know him that well, as he was friends with Sanderson Beckett. But hopefully that would mean that his intelligence ranked around Mr. Sanderson's. My mother would most definitely not approve of me getting knocked out of the competition on my first go. The man chose the piece of paper and drew it from the hat. Reading the answer, he announced, "Our first question. What figure from ancient history nearly conquered all of China?" I reached out, ringing my bell as quickly as I could. "That would be Attila the Hun," I replied. "That is correct," the announcer exclaimed. "Point goes to Regiment Worthington." The man rifled through the hat once again, selecting his paper. "Next question. An object in motion wishes to stay in motion unless acted upon by what?" I reached out quickly, ringing my bell. "An object in motion wishes to stay in motion unless acted upon by an outside force," I replied. "Correct," the announcer exclaimed. "That is 2-0 in favor of Regiment P. Worthington. Game, set, and match." That concludes the first round of our little tournament. If all of our eliminated contestants can return to their place in the children's section, we can begin round 2. I began returning back to my place in line as Eliza and all of the others excluded from the competition went back to the children's section. As the second round of the contest went on, I quietly hoped that Beckett Sanderson would be knocked out, but as the competition continued, round after round, he continued to claim victory. It almost seemed unfair, really, almost as if fate itself was conspiring against me. Every time it was Beckett's turn, the questions would always lean towards social things rather than knowledge. It's not beyond possibility that this little game might have been fixed to make him look good. Underhanded, yes, but cheating was only cheating in the category of business and social events when you got caught doing it. I did fairly well, winning all of the matches that I was in. Only one of my opponents even got the chance to ring the bell, and even then gave the wrong response. And finally, it came to the moment that I was dreading since the beginning of this little escapade. "It appears that we only have 2 contestants remaining," the announcer exclaims. "Beckett Anderson and Regiment Worthington. Please take your places at the table." As I took my seat at the table and Beckett took his across from mine, smiling at me across the table and nodding graciously. Suddenly I noticed a man approach and begin talking to the announcer quietly, whispering into his ear. The announcer looked puzzled, but listened intently. After a few moments, the man walked away, taking the hats with him, and a new hat was brought forward. What was going on? I thought to myself quietly as this exchange happened. Were they suddenly changing the criteria of the test? Why would they be doing that? "Attention, honored guests," the announcer exclaimed. "As we are down to 2 remaining contestants, and it has been agreed upon by both the parents of the contestants that the scholastic ability of their children has been tested thoroughly, they have decided that this last test shall be a test of business knowledge." Puzzled, I looked over at my mother to see her nodding. "A Apparently, her and Mrs. Sanderson, since me and her son had been decided the last contestants, they figured they might as well turn this into a competition between the families. A test of which one of us was the superior businessman, as we were both set to inherit our father's estate and the businesses that they owned. It made sense, though this seemed to simply be a child's game. In actuality, it was a business tactic to sway favor. The victor would be believed to have superior business knowledge and therefore be the optimum choice when it came to making business arrangements. Our family had long since been in a struggle with the Sanderson estate over territory, materials, labor, and the recent competition that my father had been dealing with in the steel manufacturing industry had come from the Sandersons deciding to throw their hat into the ring, buying out the steel manufacturers in the areas directly bordering my father's. The man reached into the hat, pulling another piece of paper. First question. You have two vendors wishing to sell you materials for your business. One is located quite nearby, and the other is located quite far away. The one nearby is a full set price, while the one far away is half price. Which vendor should you buy your materials from? I reached out quickly, ringing my bell just before the Sanderson boy. And it's Regiment Worthington by a nose, the announcer exclaims. So, Regiment, which vendor should you buy your materials from? It's simple, I replied. When buying materials for any business, you should always take into account shipping costs. Things usually take more to move than they do to simply buy, meaning if your vendor is far away, it's highly possible that the price of moving the materials will exceed the cost of simply buying them at a closer proximity. And the point goes to Mr. Worthington. I could see from across the table that Beckett's smile, his casual demeanor were starting to fade, and all my fears were becoming reality. The closer I got to victory, the closer I got to punishment. Second question, the announcer exclaimed, holding his next slip of paper. What is the most important thing you must possess when establishing a new business with a new client or an opposing company? I reached out as fast as I could, ringing my bell, once again moments before Beckett. When establishing a business arrangement with a new business or an opposing business, it is always important to have leverage, meaning that you have some means of making it far more advantageous to work with you than against you. Correct again. Point goes to Mr. Worthington. Game, set, and match. Our victor for this scholastic tournament, young Reginald P. Worthington. A series of distorting claps came from the audience as they cheered. It was a shutout victory for me. But as I glanced across the table at Beckett, his expression was anything but pleased. His public persona, the charming smile and debonair looks had faded into a nasty scowl, aimed directly at me. Even with the applauding and cheers, I somehow did not feel like I had won.